Hey y'all, welcome back to Whiteboard Wednesdays. Today we are going to be talking about needs versus wants, and the importance of being intentional with our language. We have to start being more intentional with our language because the words that we use, it influences and it shapes how we not only see ourselves, but how we see other people, how we see the world, and our expectations of things. I thought this topic was necessary because I have been hearing it in my clinical work and in my personal life via social media, via my own language, via the language of the people around me. And I have been hearing things like, oh, I need them to understand me, or I need to be validated, or I need to be in a relationship. We need. However, we don't ever stop to question, is it actually a need or is it a want? And so we are going to be differentiating the two today because, like I said, it is important. They're not the same things. And if we're going to be intentional about the language we are using, we have to separate the two. As y'all probably know from the last couple of Whiteboard Wednesdays, I am a definition girly. And so I wanted to provide and break down the definitions between a need and a want just to help the differentiation process, but also compare and contrast. What is your definition of a need and a want versus what is the actual definition of a need and a want? Oftentimes, our experiences, our interpretations, connotations that society has can influence and impact how we define certain things in our lives. However, I have noticed that sometimes the definitions that we have for ourselves can be very rigid and restrictive. And so showing the real definition can be so expansive and can provide options and choices that maybe some people didn't realize that we had. So let's break it down. What is a need versus a want? A need is something that is fundamental and essential to one's survival, well-being, or stability. So that is something like food, that is something like shelter, healthcare, connection, emotional regulation. All of those are basic needs. We should have access to those no matter what. It shouldn't be a struggle to get those things. Now, is it in the United States? Yes, it shouldn't, however, be, because these are basic needs that everyone needs in order to survive, in order to function. And so a want, on the other hand, is a desire that enhances life, but is not essential to your well-being, survival, or stability. So you can live without it. So that's something like entertainment, luxury items, or vacations. Do we love them? Absolutely. Do we need them, however? No. And so oftentimes we get caught up in calling something a need because it looks like someone else already has it. And so that's a place to always stop and reflect. Is this something I'm saying I'm needing because someone else has it? Social media, family expectations, even our own timelines can convince us that we are behind and that we need the things that we're actually craving. And we can start building our lives based on the blueprint that society, that family expectations, that even our own past timelines may not be reflective of the life that we're living now and who we are right now. The idea of timelines is something that I have been into, especially in my clinical work with my clients, because I hear these things so often. I need to move out because everyone else is doing it, or I need a partner because I'm the only one in the friend group single. Do you actually need that? And oftentimes, we get caught up in this timeline, like I said, and the timeline is not reflective of who we are now. I know when I was 15, I had an image of what my life would be like now that I'm 25. Have some of those things that I expected for myself happen? Absolutely. But I was very much believing that I was going to be married by now. And those things are not true. If I were to hold on to that 15-year-old timeline and put that against what my life looks like now, I would be having some disconnect, obviously. Like, well, this is where I'm supposed to be, but I'm not here. And so often we have this timeline. Well, we believe that we can't fix it. And so that means something must be wrong with us. However, timelines are not perfect and we have control over them. And so we usually don't want to, but we need to adjust those expectations that we had for ourselves that we created when we were 10, 15, to even 20 years old. I am not the person that I was when I was 20. And so it's important that I create a timeline that best reflects who I am and the things that I need and want out of my life. I often will tell my clients, and I like to tell everybody, do not let someone else tell you what you should and should not be doing in your life, because you are the only one likely that is going to have to deal with those consequences, positive or negative, of that decision that you decide to make. So somebody can be like, oh yeah, you're supposed to be married right now. And yet if I get pressured to find someone to marry, I could be rushing that process and end up with someone that I don't want to be with, and ultimately end up with the divorce in 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So never let somebody tell y'all what y'all should and should not be doing. Your life is your life. You have to figure out what works for you. And so you have to be honest. Like, do you really need that, or is it something that you want? And are you only saying that you need it because it appears that someone else has it? Comparison is a thief of joy, y'all. I know we always hear that saying, but comparison is literally the thief of joy. And we often get so caught up in comparison that wants turn into fake emergencies, and everything must happen right now at this moment. However, oftentimes we are just really, really uncomfortable with sitting still, being different than other people, or just not being at that place yet. Yet is the key word here. That doesn't mean you're never going to get there. It just might not be your time, and that is okay. So, why are we having this conversation? What actually happens when we confuse wants with needs? When we start treating wants like needs and mislabel them in our lives, we are creating a sense of pressure, a sense of urgency, and oftentimes unhealthy dynamics. So, this can, like I said, create that sense of urgency and emotional pressure. It can fuel anxiety, it can lead to people pleasing, and it can create unhealthy attachments. And so, I want to hone into the urgency and pressure part, because this is something I often see in my work, like I said. And this urgency and pressure can make you feel like you're behind. And it often, like I said, results in more comparing to yourselves, beating yourself up, those feelings of shame and guilt. And so it's so important to ask ourselves questions and approach things with curiosity, and really wonder, like, is this really a necessity, or is it something that I'm just craving in this moment? When we differentiate and clearly define needs and wants, the clear language allows us to have clearer boundaries and better expectations. And so, shifting your language from I need to I want is a form of emotional regulation. And it reminds your brain that you have a choice. We often forget that we have a choice. And that your survival is not dependent on someone texting you back or agreeing with you. I know it can feel overwhelming when we are waiting for someone to text back and we feel our emotions spiraling. However, you don't need that text back to survive. You want that. And you have now made this a need to where your emotions are dictated and driven and determined by that. So that's something that you would definitely need to work on if you're in therapy, is separating the two, because your survival is not dependent on someone else talking to you. Connection, yes, but a text back, no. And so reframing is a way that we can practice changing our language from I need to I want to better reflect what it is going on inside of our bodies. And so a reframe is a way to express words or a concept differently, is going to have a better impact on our lives. So instead of saying I need to be further ahead in life, try saying instead I'm craving progress, but I'm not failing just because I'm not where someone else is. So it's validating the feeling of, I want some progress. However, it's giving yourself that grace and understanding that, like, you're not a failure just because you're not in a position someone else is in. Everybody's life trajectories are so different. Even if you grow up in the same household, who you are and who your brother is are not going to be the same person. So it's important not to compare your life circumstances and where you are in life to what other people have going on, because what it took for them to get where they are may have been completely different than your journey, and that is okay. So another way that we can reframe is I need to be in a relationship. Instead of, saying this is a need and almost sound like a form of desperation, we can try I want companionship, but I can meet some of my own needs right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's validating, like I said, that feeling of want, that feeling of desire, but also bringing it back like I don't need this to function or survive um, in life. And so when I hear things like I need to be further in life or I need to be in a relationship in sessions with clients, I often encourage them to be curious about who told them that. Who are we getting these messages from? Is it our family system? Is it society? Is it social media? Is it our peers? Who gave us this message that we need to be in a relationship? Who gave us this message that we need to be further along in life? Again, going back to that timeline, whose timeline are we on? Approaching these things with curiosity and asking yourself these questions like, who created this belief, can allow you to start to separate, like, is this a belief that I created for myself, or is this something that was given to me? And if it was given to you, then you now have the choice to decide, okay, do I want to keep this belief, or do I want to create a belief that is more in alignment with who I am at this moment in time? And so, all in all, your wants matter, y'all. Like, I am not getting on here to say your wants don't matter, because they do. But having clarity between a want and a need helps you lead with intention. It helps you prioritize. It helps you lead with intention and not desperation. It helps you figure out what is most important and delegate what your time needs to go to. And so you are allowed to want, but don't let comparison convince you that everything that you want is a need, because it's not. And it's a need right now. It might be something that you want, but it might not happen right now, and that is okay. Give yourself the space to allow things to happen in the future. Life is a journey. Life is not a destination. And so there will be ups and downs throughout, and you are going to change and figure yourself out, and your needs and your wants will change. But give yourself grace and allow things to happen on their own times. You are not in a rush. You have time. Create the life that you want, not the life that everybody is telling you that you need to have. I will see you guys later in the next Whiteboard Wednesday. Bye.